Hello everyone, welcome to 3ddesignacademy.com. In this lesson, we will continue with part 6 of the Mercedes-Benz E-Class Coupe project. So in the previous lesson, we spent some time working on the body side, so let's continue on with that. Now, before we proceed to do anything else, I think I'm going to make some proportional changes because right now I think this line is a little bit high compared to the rest of it. The reason why I'm saying this is because if you look at the section over here, I do think that this bone line over here, which would be this line, is a little bit high compared to the proportions of the lower. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lower this a little bit so that it matches a little bit better. So I'm just going to grab this run right now like this and just lower it like that, because I do think that if you look at look at this, I think this is more about 3:2 ratio from here to here with a peak. This is about, I would say, about 60%, and this is about 40%. Right now, I think this is a little bit closer to what we need to have. Although this would depend on the location of this as well. So I think I'm going to, well, let's see. I think I'm going to add a filler right here just so that we have some proportional references. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a curve like this. Well, actually, let's do this. I'm going to just grab a curve. Right now, if you see the highlight, it's got a very gentle kind of a slope and curvature here. So what I'm going to do is I think I'm just going to copy and paste this curve over here. Actually, you know what? Let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and intersect this surface with this one, and I'm going to just do a fit curve over here like this, and it's going to be degree 2, and I'm just going to move that up. So delete the construction history over here, so it's got a very nice gentle curvature, and let's do a little bit more modification. So I'm going to use the stretch tool to point this down, because right now this is sloping down, so I think it might be a good idea to match it as well. And this one I might just move it up a little bit, and I'm going to add a little bit of crown like this. Well, let's see. Okay, so now that's done, I'm just going to go ahead and let's go into project like this, and I'm going to just grab a freeform blend. It's going to be G2, it's going to position on one side, so I'm going to grab this edge like this, and I'm going to say default over here, and I'm going to say default over here as well. Now, if you look at the surface though, you'll notice that it's a 2 degree and 5 span. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to query edit history, and I'm going to turn explicit control on, and I'm going to say U degree to 5. That takes it down to single span, which I think it looks pretty good. And I'm just going to take a look at the highlight. I think it looks pretty good. However, I think we can probably make some modifications. But as far as the proportion goes, I think this is much better than before. That said, however, I think I'm going to make it a little bit more subtle because I think it's a little bit abrupt. So how about this? Let's go ahead and trim, or not trim. I'm going to project some curves for the door cut, which is going to give us a pretty good reference of how the body side is supposed to look. So let me just turn this into degree 2 curve. I'm going to grab this one like this, and I'm going to just push it this way like that, so that we can sort of mimic the curve. I'm going to place this edge on the shoulder over here. This one probably needs to be a little bit forward. Let's match it like that. I'm going to extend this side. Now, if you notice, the CV structure is a little bit off. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hide unselected, and I'm going to just grab both CVs here, and I'm going to snap it right here using my right mouse button so that it doesn't change from the side view. And let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now let's go ahead, and I'm going to just project this curve over here from the side. So you can either go to the side view, or you can always project it from Y like this. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. However, I do also need to project on the upper. So let's go ahead and do that as well, like this. Okay, so let's take a look. So I think this probably needs to be a little bit more subtle. If you look at it from the rear view, I do think that we probably need to pull this out. Let's go ahead and take a look. Oh yeah, I think that might be a good idea. So I'm just going to pull it out. That said, I should be aware of where this is located, because if I pull it out too much, that's going to create some problems too. So I'm just going to pull it out like that, and let's go ahead and use the stretch tool to grab this side over here like this, and I'm just going to pull it out. Oh, wrong one. Just going to pull it out like this. Okay, so I think that looks a little bit better, and I probably want to add well, I have to decide on this, but I do think that this surface can definitely use a little bit more crown. The only issue though is if I add more crown here, I think that's going to create a little bit of highlight issue over here as well. So I think I have to be a little bit careful. We'll decide that a little bit later. That said, however, I do think that this is a little bit harsh. Well, actually, I'm not sure. Well, it looks pretty nice and soft. And well, because of the little bit of surface work that we did, I think this has a nice shape, as you can see over here. So let's see if I can grab a side view. Yeah, so it's got a nice shaped light catcher over here. Okay, so I think lowering this definitely helps, although I do think that I should probably just push this in a little bit more. Well, actually, you know what? Before I do that though, let me see if this in line. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the top view canvas by itself. Well, I don't think the location is actually that bad. Yeah, I think I'm just going to leave it for now. However, I probably could do a little bit of refinement on that as well. Okay, so not too bad for now. And let's just do some more modifications later. Okay, so I do think that it's a little bit better now. However, I do think that it needs a little bit more crown. So let's go back to the image that we had. Not this one. Yeah, I think it was this one. Now this is a E53 AMG. So if you look at the if you look at the exhaust area and some of the fascia stuff, you'll notice that it's a little bit different. But since we're not doing that anymore yet, and we are concentrating more on the body side, I think this is going to be totally fine to use this, because the body side, the door, all these panels are exactly the same between the two. It's just the fascias are different. All right. That said, however, I do think I should add a little bit more crown here. Instead of 0.01, I'll maybe 0.015. And I'll probably have to add a little bit more crown here as well. So I'm just going to go 0.015 as well. For now. Yeah, I don't like how the highlight is acting over here, but that also depends on few things. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of digging. Because if you see, compare the highlight over here, you'll see that it's shifting a little bit. But let's say I push back, you'll see that it's a little bit more consistent. That said, however, I do think that we need to spend a little bit more time refining that. So let's go ahead and take a look. I think this rear one is looking pretty good. So let's go ahead and build more surfaces. Okay, so now that it's been lowered, let's go back to this view and just make sure that this line is looking good. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, well, I think I should have just flipped the image over. But let's compare the section. Okay, so I think it actually doesn't look too bad. Okay, so I think I'm just going to leave it for now like that. However, I do think, so if well, let's do this too. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going, right now we have a surface over here. I'm going to create the same thing over here. So let's go ahead and now this one, because it is, let's take a look at the side view. So you'll see that it's actually diving down like this. So I think what I'm going to do is, let's go ahead over here. I'm just going to, oops, I'm just going to move it up like that. Move the theoretical like this, and I'm just going to have this curve dive down to here. Now for this one, I am going to make it a degree 3 so that we can make it nice and curvature. And this is also going to be similar to the CV structure over here. So I'm just going to grab this line over here. I'm going to align it like this, and it's going to be G2. Now I do think that's a little bit high, so maybe I'll just lower it a little bit. So let's go ahead and lower this a little bit like that. Hopefully we still retain somewhat of a nice highlight over here. I think we still do. And let's go ahead and project from the side. And again, I'm going to grab freeform blend. It's going to curvature on top, and it's going to be positioned here on the bottom. It's not going to be edge line over here. It's just going to be default. Wait, oh, okay, so wrong spot. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit this one over here, and I'm going to hit this surface over here like this. Okay, so that looks a little bit better. However, even with the explicit control, it looks like this has a degree 5, so I probably have to fix that. But so far, I think it looks pretty good. The only issue is I do think that this the peak of this area, or peak of the light catcher over here, is about, well, I think it's below the where the door handle, the back of the door handle is. So let's go ahead and see if it is present. Unfortunately, I don't think there's a door handle. Okay, so the next best thing would be this point over here. So I think this might be a good location for us to reference where this peak is, which means I am actually going to move this one quite more forward in car. And let's take a look. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I think I'm going to have to rebuild this. So let's delete those. And I'm just going to extend this curve over here, and let's just match it over here. Okay, so this one right now, I'm going to auto scale G2. I'm going to turn that on, and I'm just going to push it a little bit rearward so that it's nice and balanced. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to do something a little bit different. If you notice right here, the peak for this one is about below this Dorco line, or top of the Dorco line. But if you look at down here, the peak is actually down here, a little bit more forward of the location. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make it a little bit more diagonal in shape. I think that might help a little bit more with the shape, with the highlight. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to, wait, it's this curve over here. I'm going to make it degree 2, and I'm going to probably add a little bit of crown like this. Now the surfaces are doing stuff all over the place. That's okay. I'm just going to center pivot, and I'm just going to rotate it using my middle mouse button like this. And I'm just going to push it a little bit rearward like that. So this way, let's go ahead, and I'm probably going to add a little bit more crown like this, and I'm just going to rotate it so that it's somewhat close to the shape of the wheel flat. I think I'm just going to do this over here. So let's take a look, and I'm going to untrim this piece over here. Looks like this surface actually disappeared. Where did it go? Okay, so it looks like it's behind over here, which is fine. I just need to untrim it, and I have to retrim over here. Now, the reason why this happens is because the area that you selected can sometimes shift, or if the curve and surface has shifted, that could also create that. So let's go ahead and I'm going to, well, let's take a look. Okay, so right now this has a nice gentle fall, but I do feel like it could be a little bit more forward and Kaya, and I also think that we could probably, wait, is this I think this is a freeform blend. Yes, it is. Okay. So if that's the case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to push this one a little bit more inboard like this, so that the fall is nice and gentle. And I think what I'm going to do is, well, let's take a look at this. Well, this also needs a highlight fix. So let's go ahead, and I think I'm just going to push the whole thing in like this. That should make the highlight a little bit better. I think the problem is right now this probably has a little bit too much crown compared to this one. So I'm going to refine that a little bit later. But for now, let's just try to estimate where this peak is supposed to be. Now for this one, I am going to raise the angle a little bit because I think it might be a little bit too shallow. So I don't think it's gives us a good representation. Okay, there we go. So I'm just rotating it in X so that I have a theoretical of where things are. Just this is just a very good indicator of how the highlight is going to flow. Now, because I am going to be using a freeform blend with G2 on top and position down here, this is basically just acting as a guide instead of the final surface. Okay, so I think so far so good. However, I am going to rotate this one also. So just rotate it using my left mouse button. Just going to make it somewhat similar to the one on top. Okay, so let's just compare the shape between this one and also the side view. So let's go just take a look. Okay, so I do think that it's pretty close. Let's go back to the side view. Where is it? There we go. Okay, so, but I think the bottom one probably could be a little bit softer in transition. So I think what I'm going to do is, well, let's push this in a little bit more. Like that. And I think, okay, so that looks pretty good. And I think I'm just going to also push this point a little bit more forward in car. So I'm just going to push that in. And I'm going to push this back, so that's a little bit more angled. Okay, so this point has moved forward a little bit more. I think this is looking nice. Let's move it a little bit more forward in car. And let's move this one back a little bit. Okay, so I think the highlight is still looking pretty good. I think it's just a matter of adjusting the crown value so that it matches nicely. Okay, so far so good. I do feel like this could be a little bit better. Also, I am going to turn explicit control because I prefer not to use degree 6 curve or degree 6 curve or surfaces, period. Okay, so I think another thing that I can do is I can probably give it a little more acceleration towards the end. As far as the transition goes, I think it's a little bit better than before. So what I mean is you'll see that it starts very gentle and it hooks towards the end. So what I can do is, well, let me just copy and paste it so that I can just show you guys what I mean. So what I can do is I can right now there's a very gentle slope from here and it just suddenly like kicks in like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to align this piece over here like this. It's going to be, well, you don't have to make it edge, but auto scale G2 is on, and what I can do is I can just push it in a little bit, so that way you'll get a nice hook towards the end. Now this probably needs a little bit of refinement also, and one thing though is right now this is just a hard edge. It doesn't have a proper highlight, so that probably needs to be done in the end. So, well, actually, speaking of which, I'm going to see if I can just put a fillet here, or if I should do a freeform blend. We'll take a look. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, 50. Okay, and let's see. Now I can fill this patch, but don't. Probably this might be a little bit better. Okay, so that looks, I think, well, other than the transition is a little bit, I think, harsh. So I probably have to play around with the angle a little bit, but overall, I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so that is that, and let's go back on top over here. So I think that's looking pretty good, and I think I'm going to, well, let's see. Let's go ahead. Well, one of the reasons why we started this is to make sure that this proportion over here is good. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a freeform blend, and I'm going to hit this curve over here like this. It's going to be default over here. It's going to default over there, and it's going to G2 on one side and position on the other. So let's just compare the proportions a little bit. And well, I think this one is a little bit short, so let's go ahead and extend this piece right here. So I'm just going to snap it like this so that it matches nicely, and I'm going to go ahead and do a freeform blend here also. It's going to G2 on one side, position on the other. It's going to default there. Now I know there are a million, oh, actually wrong spot, so I'm going to hit this one. It's going to default here, edge align over there. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Okay, so I think as far as the highlight goes, I think that looks pretty good. Although I think let's see. Well, while the highlight looks good, I think the position might be a little slightly off. Let's see if there's another side view. I'm going to try and grab another side view. Hopefully that might show that area a little bit better. Now, this isn't exactly a side view, but, well, let's compare. I think this is probably, wait, is it the same image? Oh, yes, it is. Okay, never mind. Okay. I think the peak is similar in shape. So I'm wondering if I should just push this in a little bit more. Like that. So that it has a little bit more gentle drop off. And I'll actually push this one out. Like that. I'm actually thinking maybe I should make it into degree 3. So let's do that. I'm going to make it into degree 3 curve. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to push this in like that, and I'm going to push this out. Now, when I'm doing this, well, actually, it might be okay. Now you'll see that it's got a little bit of negative over here. So I think I'm just going to push that on the top, and wow, I would actually prefer to make it a degree 2, but I think that might mess up the CV structure. Okay, so you'll see that this is actually it's got a little negative CV structure. So compared to the line, the CV is actually located on top. However, that is going to probably give us a little bit gentle slope right here, which I think this now does. Although I think the drop off should be a little bit more steep, but I mean, highlight looks pretty good. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. It does have a nice dive over here. So I think overall not too bad. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. And although I think this line is highlight is diving down a little bit, so I'll probably, well, I guess it depends on the view, because right now this line it looks pretty straight, but this line it looks like it's diving down. So I think what that means is there's probably a little bit more acceleration towards here, and it's becoming a little bit flat compared to here. So I think that's another thing that I probably have to play with. All right, so well, I think in overall shape, I think highlight refinement, I'm going to wait a little bit before I do that. I prefer to, well, patch a little bit more few surfaces in. So let's go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to do is, let's go ahead and see if I can patch the surface in. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a curve here. It's just going to be a degree curve, and I'm just going to push it up like that. And let's go ahead and create a fender over here. So I'm just going to project it from Y, and I'm going to grab freeform blend. I'm going to say position over here. It's going to G2 over here like that. And modify parameter is going to be off. However, I do want modify range on. And just in case it blows up, well, first of all, let's just change the connect ends. Oops. So I'm just going to move this arrow on top like this. And I'm going to move this one over here like that, so that we can sort of have a look at how the shape is and how the highlight is. Now I know it looks super messy with all these spans, but at least we can check out if the highlight is flowing well. Okay, so I think it is. However, I do feel like this can probably dive down quite a bit. So I'm just going to dive it down like this. Probably do something like that. And let's go ahead, and I'm going to use the stretch tool to snap a curve over here. So that should make it a little bit better. And I think we need to untrim this and retrim. Okay, so that looks a little bit better. It's got a nice pull. I don't know if you guys can see it. Let's see. Yeah, so you'll see the highlight going this way and flicking back out. I think we are able to achieve the same highlight like this. Although yes, the surface does need refinement, but overall, I think the shape looks pretty good. So not too bad. Okay, that said, however, we probably definitely need to work on this shape. So I think, that said, I think I'm going to leave this for a little bit later. Because, well, we still have a lot of proportional change to make. So I'm just going to leave it a little bit rough. I know there are spans all over the place. But let's save it for some other time. Okay. That's it. However, I'm going to see if, well, let's block more surfaces in. So I'm just going to extend this piece over here. I'm going to grab the curve over here like this. I'm just going to extend it. And now it looks like it extends all the way through, but I don't actually need it to do that. Let's see if it's trimmed. I thought it was trimmed, but I guess not. So let's go ahead and trim it. Okay, so it looks like it was untrimmed. Oh, that's why. Okay, so I'm just going to grab the fit curve over here. I'm going to extend it to this point like this, and I'm going to trim the surface. This door cut curved surface, I'm going to get rid of for now. Okay, so that's good. And I'm just going to project it from side, again from Y. And let's go ahead and do a freeform blend again. I'm going to hit this point, and I'm going to hit this point over here. It's going to edge align on this side for this one. Well, I think connect. Well, actually, edge align should work. And for this one, yeah, I think I'm just going to leave it. Now highlight, I mean, despite the fact that we have a hole here, the highlight should flow nicely. So let's just compare. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Not too bad. Although because it is curling in, I probably need to add a row of CV here. Right now, while the highlight looks pretty nice, it's not exactly following this one. So I think what's happening is, well, either it's returning over here, so it could be an extension of that, or I probably need to add another row of CV just here. Well, not just here, but I'll have to add another row of CV. I'll probably have to pull it out so that it creates a little positive, so they returns the highlight to the other direction. Okay, so over here, not too bad. And I think over here, how it falls off looks pretty good. We probably need to add a fillet here. So let's go ahead and add this surface at the bottom next. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, well, let's see. I think I'm just going to make it, well, yeah, I think I'm going to make it out of bi-rail. But before I do that, let me see if there's a shape reference for this. Unfortunately, I don't think there is. Well, the problem is those fenders are blocked by the wheel, or the tire, I should say. So I don't think I can see it. However, there's quite a possibility that it's probably similar in shape to that. So I think this one is a little bit flat compared to the front. So let's take a look. So I think those are pretty similar, but I think this one is a little bit more, I guess, horizontal. So let's go ahead and create a bi-rail. So I'm going to just go to the rear view and I'm going to strike a curve like this. I'm just going to make something similar, just roughly. And I'm going to hit this point over here. And for the front, let's see if I can get a front. And let's go ahead and I'm going to just quickly mimic it. And I'm going to hit this point over here like that. And let's go ahead and do a bi-rail. So it's going to be 1 and 2. So I'm just going to hit this point and I'm going to hit this point and see how that turns out. Well, I think this one is a little bit too long. So let's extend it back like this. And I also think right now looks like there's a little bow. So what I can do is I can just grab this, well, one of these curves. I'm just going to project it down like this. And let's go ahead and project from the side. Okay, so that looks good. And what I'm going to do is just grab project like that. And just trim. Okay, so I don't think that's... I think that looks pretty good. And let's figure out what's going on over here. Now well, considering that the highlight over here is all flush, I think it should just be one surface. So if that is the case, what I can do is I can probably just, well, this one, I think it's just supposed to be one line. And this one, I think the peak is supposed to disappear. So, which means I probably have to cut this off over here and make sure the transition is, well, basically just making it to one surface. That said, however, I think I'm going to leave that for the next tutorial. I don't know if this is supposed to be like this, but well, it's following the shape, so I guess it's good. All right. Okay, so that is it for part 6. Of course, we will continue in the next tutorial, and thank you guys for watching.